Donut Operator is often in the news, so today we're doing a recap of all the drama and news around Donut Operator in the past few weeks. This is a compilation of my videos on Donut Operator, and there are chapters in the description to help you find any specific story you'd like. With that said, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we're talking about Donut Operator, because Donut Operator has gotten himself in some drama with iDubbbz. Not exactly the crossover I was expecting, but it turns out that Donut Operator and iDubbbz used to be friends. Keyword used to be. And today we're going to find out why. So how did all of this start? Well, the other day on the Unsubscribed podcast, which Donut Operator does with a few other creators, they had Tectone on. And Tectone brought up Hassan, and they talked about Twitch drama for a very long time. Now, of course, you'll know that Hassan and iDubbbz have recently gone extremely far left and are both involved in drama against Ethan Klein. That connection eventually led the conversation about Hassan to turn to iDubbbz, where Donut Operator explained that he used to be friends with iDubbbz, but that iDubbbz had stopped talking to him after Donut Operator made a joke that iDubbbz decided crossed the line. And what was that joke? Well, let's listen to Donut Operator explain it.
So like he went to a range day with me one time, like we used to talk a lot about content creation and stuff. And COVID rolls around, I get bored at home, so I make an OnlyFans where I'm showing my meat.
Really?
And so, well, basically, I'm taking a steak and I'm rating a steak. And like,
see, that's the reaction that you're supposed to have. Genius.
I thought it was funny. So I'd be wearing like just an apron. Of course, I'm wearing like boxers underneath. And I'd reach down and be like, "This is my OnlyFans," and this is an A5 Wagyu from down the street. And I would talk about it. And I sent it to Ian, and he got mad and called me and like said I was making fun of Anissa, and like I wasn't. I just thought it was a funny bit because I was sitting at home during COVID. And
you'll never understand what it's like to be an ally.
Yeah, he like said stuff like that, and yeah, just like haven't talked to him since. That was like 5 years ago.
Over that?
Yeah, and I've like texted him and tried to reconnect with him. He just won't talk to me anymore.
That's right. Donut Operator made a joke OnlyFans back in the day showing his meat, meaning that he was showing people steaks that he was cooking. This was apparently incredibly offensive to iDubbbz because, as you may know, iDubbbz's wife is an OnlyFans creator, and iDubbbz seems to be incredibly insecure about that. He famously put up a video defending OnlyFans, and it was very cringe. So anyway, it's a bit of a sore spot for him, and he thought that Donut Operator was making fun of his wife by making a joke OnlyFans. Now, obviously, that's insane. However, I guess iDubbbz just has some kind of massive ego and thinks the world revolves around him, and he decided this was a personal attack on him. To the point that iDubbbz still, to this day, 5 years later, will not talk to Donut Operator. That's next level petty, I'll give you that. Anyway, iDubbbz did go out to respond to this, calling out Donut Operator, saying, conveniently leaving out that your girlfriend at the time was pursuing OnlyFans, but you were too pussy to deal with the criticism, so you made a parody account. No, I don't want to be friends with a coward. So iDubbbz is outing Donut Operator's girlfriend at the time. I'm not sure if he's still with that woman or if it's somebody he's no longer seeing, for having an OnlyFans, and he's claiming that because Donut Operator didn't have to deal with the criticism of having a girlfriend who does OnlyFans, he made a joke OnlyFans to make fun of it. Now, firstly, somebody you're dating having an OnlyFans is kind of cringe. However, the best way to deal with pretty much anything cringe is to just joke about it, and Donut Operator is funny, so he made a joke. It's actually a pretty funny joke. I honestly don't know how anybody got upset about that, but iDubbbz calls Donut Operator a coward because he did this instead of coming out like iDubbbz did and making an incredibly cringe video about how he supports sex workers. Which, yeah, I mean, I think Donut Operator actually had the better approach to how to handle this, to be honest with you. And then things got weirder, because like always, iDubbbz's wife, Anissa, had to jump into the fray. She said, he also took us to a gun show where a child accidentally fired a gun that was loaded on a sales table into the crowd, and everybody nonchalantly said ND in unison like it wasn't a big deal. Now, if you don't know, ND means negligent discharge, and it's basically when you accidentally shoot a gun. However, if you know anything about guns, you might know that what she's describing here doesn't make any sense. I don't care what gun show you're at, if somebody accidentally shoots at a gun show, that's gonna be a big deal. They're not just gonna hand wave that away. And well, as it turns out, this is just a lie, at least according to Donut Operator's friend Brendan Herrera, who said, I was gonna set the record straight, but it turns out she preemptively blocked me. What she's calling a gun show was a live firing range. Conveniently left that out for no particular reason, I'm sure. And yeah, that completely changes the conversation, because if somebody has a negligent discharge at a live firing range, more than likely they're accidentally shooting out towards nothing, towards an area set up for test firing guns. And therefore, that's significantly less dangerous than accidentally shooting a gun inside of a gun show, obviously. Though neither one of them is particularly safe. It's basically just Anissa was completely mischaracterizing this to make Donut Operator look bad. Even though I honestly think this is kind of a stupid thing to point out, because she's saying, oh, a donut operator did this to us. But what did he do? Even if we take her at her word, right? And we say, oh, Brendan Herrera is not right. This wasn't a live firing range, which it probably was, because I don't think Brendan Herrera is going to lie about that. If we take Anissa at her word, what she's mad at donut operator for is taking them to a gun show. That's it, because donut operator didn't have a negligent discharge. Some random person there did. And then it's not like donut operator didn't make a big deal about the ND. Everybody, according to Anissa, didn't care about it. Why is any of that donut operator's fault? Why is she bringing that up against donut operator? Once again, I do think that Anissa was greatly mischaracterizing what happened there, if not just outright lying, because let's be honest, Anissa and iDubbbz do not have the best track record with the truth recently, especially given all that's going on with Creator Clash now that they've left. So do you guys think it's fair for iDubbbz to be super mad at donut operator for this, for making a joke OnlyFans? Do you think that that's worth cutting off a friendship and not talking to somebody for 5 years? I don't, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys say in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Today, we're going to be talking about donut operator and Brendan Herrera. Why? Because they've been taking on the California governor. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about the LA riots. That's right, people in LA are up in arms. They're going around, they're burning stuff down, they're attacking police cars. It's a big mess. However, if you looked at Gavin Newsom's Twitter account, you'd think everything's great. If we take a look at his top tweet right here, you'll see his understanding of what's going on. Local law enforcement didn't need help. Now, obviously, that's not true, because there were a lot of law enforcement trapped under a bridge as people were throwing rocks at them earlier. So Gavin Newsom is living up to his name and lying to the American people, but hey, that's just what he does. Anyway, luckily enough, we've got people like donut operator and Brendan Herrera who are taking on the California governor and calling him out. So if we go here to this tweet by Gavin Newsom, the Secretary of Defense is now threatening to deploy active duty Marines on American soil against its own citizens. This is deranged behavior. Now, if you don't know, the reason that the Secretary of Defense is threatening to deploy troops to LA is because of the massive riots, but also because under the Insurrection Act of 1807, the president can declare an insurrection and then use American troops to put down the insurrection. Now, obviously, the riots in LA do kind of have the hallmarks of an insurrection. I mean, they're not waving American flags, and the governor of the state seems to be trying to draw a line between his state and the federal government, which is secessionist rhetoric, and historically hasn't ended well. However, Brendan Herrera responded to this tweet, and he said, "Then handle your shit like a big boy before daddy has to do it for you," referring to Trump, because obviously Gavin Newsom here, he's kind of useless. Obviously, he has a history of just being weak on riots and weak on crime in general, because, you know, California. And then if we go to this tweet here, you'll see Gavin Newsom posted this: "Join the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department and state emergency officials in LA as we respond to protests provoked by chaos from Washington." Now, this is not provoked by chaos from Washington, obviously. It's provoked by the fact that there have been illegal aliens living in California for a very long time, and nobody's done anything about it, despite it being against the law for them to be here. So they sent in ICE agents to lawfully arrest these people and remove them from the country, and apparently the people living there are not happy that the law is being enforced. Now, I know it's controversial, because laws aren't typically enforced in California, so I can understand why they're a little upset, but for him to frame this as Trump's political games is a little bit ridiculous. And Donut Operator thought so too. Donut Operator responded to this tweet and he said, "None of those dudes respect you and they all think you're a dirtbag politician." That's true. Gavin Newsom is perhaps the face of dirtbag politicians. He is the scummiest looking politician I've ever seen. He just looks sleazy. No offense to him. But that wasn't all of Donut Operator's response. Donut also said, "Dude, you have failed that state for years and now you're dragging law enforcement officers into it. Hopefully some of these guys can laterally transfer to a state that isn't as lame and gay as California." And I'm not going to dispute his characterization of California there. God, who would want to be a cop in California? The governor doesn't support you, the mayors don't support you, even the police chiefs don't support you. It's gotta be terrible. Anyway, I just thought it was funny to see these guys take on the California governor. Obviously, the governor's not gonna listen to them. He doesn't even listen to his own voters. Why would he listen to some YouTubers? But I do think it's good that we're seeing people like Donut Operator and Brendan Herrera push back on these corrupt politicians who are trying to shirk responsibility for the issues that they've helped cause. So let me know what you think of this whole situation down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. You know, I cover a lot of streamers and YouTubers doing bad things and getting in trouble, so I thought it'd be nice for once to take a look at a YouTuber who's actually doing something good and positive for the world, and that's Donut Operator. Now, if you don't know who Donut Operator is, he's a YouTuber who recently started streaming, but he's very big in the firearms sphere. Now, Donut Operator is just a genuine American, and I appreciate that about him, but what I saw him do today was perhaps the nicest thing I've seen a YouTuber do in months. So, what's going on? Well, you might have heard that there's major flash flooding in Texas. So these videos here show some of the flooding that's going on. It is crazy. And it was completely out of the blue. Nobody was expecting this to happen, just flash floods. which has unfortunately led to a number of people who at the time of recording are still missing, and some other ones who met a worse fate. Unfortunately, this kind of thing happens. Nature is brutal, but the good thing that you see in America, especially when something like this happens, is people coming together to try and help their fellow Americans. And Donut Operator today showed that he is willing to do that. So there was this guy, Nick Sorter, on X. He tweeted out, "Urgent help needed. If you own a Starlink in the region of San Antonio and are willing to loan it out to first responders near the Caraville floods, please contact me. Connectivity is horrific. I will personally pay you for letting us borrow them and will guarantee their safe return." To which Donut Operator actually responded and said, "DM'd you, I'll run mine out there right now." So Donut Operator is dropping everything on the 4th of July, a holiday that he's probably spending with his family and friends, to drive a Starlink out to help the rescuers try and save people in the floods. That right there is something you don't see very often anymore. It's a good American standing up for his fellow Americans. And unfortunately, it's become a lot rarer in the past couple of years, but I'm happy to see it once again, especially from a YouTuber, because I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of YouTubers are narcissistic and horrible people. At least the ones I've met. Maybe I just have bad luck, but I don't think there's a lot of them that would do this. So anyway, Nick Sorter responded and said, "Just replied, setting up an operations center near Bourne as we speak, working on specific locations for distribution. Thanks, bro, will be a long night." And yes, unfortunately, it will be a long night because this stuff is brutal. There's so many people that are having the worst July 4th of their lives. So every once in a while, I like to throw in something positive like this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Should I make more positive videos like this every once in a while? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. We're back talking about Donut Operator today. Whereas yesterday's video was a bit of levity with Donut Operator donating his Starlink to help the rescuers, working to rescue people in the Texas flash floods. Today we have a controversy coming out of the Texas flash floods, and that's between Donut Operator and NMPLOL, or Nick Polum. Now this guy here, Nick, he screwed up because he decided to wade into the Texas flood issue by making a joke at the expense of the people who are still missing. That's right, we're going to take a look at the joke that Nick made and Donut Operator's response today. But needless to say, Donut Operator, who has been involved in the response and spent his day today volunteering to go out and look for people who are, missing or in danger and to help them if he could, and then obviously, find the other things that you can find in a disaster like this. He's pretty angry that anybody would make a joke of this situation, and I think rightfully, because when we get into Nick's joke here, you're going to realize that it's completely tasteless. So let's go and listen to it. Luckily, Yeet clipped it. So here's the full exchange of what NMPLOL decided to say, right after you hit the like button on this video, and subscribe if you haven't already.
And like 12 campers are lost right now from a summer camp nearby.
Campers?
Is it children awake?
Younglings, Nick.
Okay. They don't have much to live for anyways. It's okay.
They have their whole lives ahead of them.
Yeah.
What? Their whole lives, Bree? That's gonna Bree.
Entire
When they're older, every job is gonna be AI. Everything they learn is on ChatGPT. There is no future.
That's right, Nick here decided to make a joke about not just people missing in this disaster, but specifically about missing children, which obviously has some people upset, especially because it's not a very good joke. All he's saying is that they're going to be brain rotted because of ChatGPT and that AI is going to take their jobs. It's not a good joke. If it was funny, people might be able to overlook how offensive it is. However, not only did Nick make a bad joke about a very sensitive topic, it also just wasn't a funny one. So he was immediately attacked, not just by Donut Operator, but Donut Operator was the main person who was very angry about this, and for good reason. As I said, Donut Operator here, he has been spending his time over the past couple days going and volunteering to try to help people recover from this disaster, so it probably shouldn't have been a surprise when Donut Operator tweeted this at Nick. "We were out in the mud looking for bodies all day." Great joke. And then a bad word that YouTube doesn't want me to say that starts with F and ends with T, and then he tagged NMP. And then this is a picture of Donut Operator and his friends going out to try to help with these search and recovery efforts. Nick did respond to this, evidently just upset about the word that Donut Operator used to describe him. He tweeted out this picture of himself at Donut Operator. Now, why did he do that? I don't know. However, Donut Operator did share immediately afterwards that NMP blocked him so that he couldn't respond to this weird tweet. While this whole thing was going on, NMP was actually talking in his Discord server, and he said stuff like, "Yeah, Tectone asked me if I wanted to go shoot with them. That answer's definitely no, LOL." And then in another post, he said, "Yeah, the joke was bad, I'll give him that, but calling a 35-year-old man the F slur in 2025 is wild. I feel like it's high school." Just think about this for a second. So he's upset that he was called a mean name when he was making fun of missing children. Which one of those is worse? Because I think it's fairly obvious that he is in the wrong here and that Donut Operator is in the right. So obviously Yeet was the one who screenshotted these messages and posted them on. So if we go here, we can actually see Donut Operator's response to these messages that were screenshotted and shared by Yeet. Donut Operator said at OTK Network, at Tips Out, who's I believe he's the CEO of OTK, or or at least he's in charge. These the kind of people you like having around, joking about this situation and then doubling down on it, only apologizing once they get called out. Took this picture today. I want to ask him if he's got some jokes about it. And then a very somber picture of just a shoe. Immediately after Donut Operator put up this tweet, we got a response from Tips Out. Now, as you can see here, Yeet says, OTK CEO Tips Out just dropped a statement about the Texas floods. And then Tips Out wrote this entire post saying that he feels bad for all these families and that he's praying for them. Nick, or NMPLOL, was actually finally forced to apologize. He said, sorry guys, the joke went too far. I wasn't fully aware of the situation. It's tragic what happened. I'll be more mindful going forward. Hope everyone stays safe and dry in Texas. Heart, heart. Now, obviously, I don't think this is a genuine apology. I don't think that he really feels bad about it, because the type of person who feels bad about making this kind of joke is not the type of person who would be making it to begin with. I believe that he's just upset that he got called out and that he's getting a ton of hate. In fact, he didn't retweet the Donut Operator post. He retweeted an account called Roz Alerts that was talking about him. And if we go and we take a look here, Roz Alerts has 1.2 million followers, as you can see there. So what I believe happened is he realized this was getting out of hand and that it was being posted by a much bigger account than the original account that brought this to people's attention, and he scrambled to cover his rear end. Now, if you were to ask me what I think about this whole mess, I would say that Nick is entirely in the wrong, not just because he made the joke, but because he made that unfunny joke while he knew he was on stream. It's the kind of dark humor joke you tell your friends in private. It's not something you put up and live stream out to the internet. I don't think that he should be condemned for making the joke. I think he should be condemned for making the joke without realizing that this whole situation was still going on and that there are real emotions here. If he made this joke in 6 months, very few people would be upset. Obviously, the people affected might get upset. It's just the fact that you don't joke about tragedy this close to it. And you certainly, if you're gonna joke about tragedy this close to this tragedy happening, in fact, actually when it's still going on, you don't do that publicly. It's just a complete lack of self-awareness from Nick here, and genuinely makes me think that he's probably a little bit of a psychopath, because how stupid and how insensitive do you have to be to make a joke like this while this is going on, especially because I'm pretty sure he lives in Texas. So this whole thing's happening in his state and he's making jokes like this. I just think that in this world, you don't want to be the person making fun of the people who are suffering in a tragedy. You want to be a donut operator, a person who's going out and helping people. And that's where I'll leave it. What do you guys think about this whole situation? Can Nick come back from this, or is he completely cooked? Tell me, do you think Nick should have even made this joke? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Donut Operator and Brandon Herrera are calling out Politico over this tweet, where Politico said that 25-year-old political influencer Deja Fox has a real shot at winning tonight's Arizona primary to replace the late Republican Raul Grijalva. She's one of the first professional content creators to run for Congress, but she won't be the last. Now, what Donut Operator and Brandon Herrera are upset about is this line. She's one of the first professional content creators to run for Congress. Because, as Donut Operator says, I might know a guy who did it first. And that's because Brandon Herrera actually ran for Congress in Texas just like last year, and he almost won. Well, the primary at least. He was only about 700 votes away from winning and unseating a political incumbent, which I think is a lot better than this woman did. So anyway, obviously it's stupid for Politico to say she's one of the first professional content creators, because there's actually been quite a few content creators who have run for Congress, including Brandon Herrera, obviously, and also I think Joey Salads ran for Congress. But because of that, pointing out that she's one of the first professional content creators to run for Congress is a completely useless statement. Nobody cares if you're one of the first. If you're not the first person to do it, why would you point that out in an article headline? And while I think the reason is pretty obvious, but Brandon Herrera actually pointed it out, I guess I wasn't socialist enough for a glowing article from Politico last year. Oh well, at least I wasn't a TikTok influencer. Now what he's saying here obviously is that Politico is incredibly biased towards the extreme far left, which I tend to personally agree with. I think that a lot of the mainstream media, including especially written media, are all completely unhinged and way too far to the left to actually represent anybody. But in case you're wondering if Brandon Herrera was right about her being a socialist, well, if we go here to her Wikipedia page, we can see that she is an American political rally organizer and model who was a candidate in the Democratic primary elections for Arizona's 7th congressional district in the 2025 special election. She previously campaigned for Kamala Harris in her 2020 and 2024 campaigns, having first come to national prominence as a supporter of Planned Parenthood. Now, that last sentence tells you everything you need to know about what side of the aisle she's on. And there was one part of that paragraph I didn't read. She actually lost the election, losing to Adelita Grijalva, which probably shouldn't be too surprising because she's just another TikTok influencer that nobody's ever heard of, obviously. I feel like people on TikTok can have millions of followers and you literally will never have heard their names. But poor Deja here, she really didn't have a chance. Brandon Herrera actually posted the primary results for her election, showing that she only won 21.2% of the vote, with Adelita Grijalva getting 61.9% of the vote, basically completely trouncing this woman and winning the election. Just look at the actual raw vote numbers here. Adelita got 33,000 votes, whereas Deja Fox, our influencer candidate, only got 11,000. So obviously TikTok followers do not translate very well into actual voters. And that's kind of funny because if we compare her results to Brandon Herrera's results, it's night and day. Here we have the primary election that Brandon Herrera lost. You'll see that there's two elections here, which the second one, the bottom one here, is the important one. Basically, they have some kind of runoff election system in Texas. It's a stupid way to do it, but for some reason, a lot of states are adapting it. So because nobody got to 50% of the vote in the first election, they took the top two and had them run again in the second primary. And in the second primary, Brandon Herrera only lost by 1 point, just about 700 votes difference. So that's how close he got, whereas this woman, who Politico wrote an entire puff piece about, only managed to get 20% of the vote. Very sad for her. Too bad. So what do you guys think? Should these news media people give some more credit to people like Brandon Herrera, who actually ran for Congress and did a decent job, instead of these random nobody TikTokers who were running for Congress? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and God bless you.